YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Ant the Barber coming back at you with another haircut tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be doing a classic cut with a low bald fade. So I like to begin by brushing or combing out my client's hair. And with this haircut, what I like to do is I like to saturate the hair with water, gain a little bit more control over it, and then I like to style it somewhat to get the hair to lay in the direction that it's going to fall in. So while the hair is still saturated and I have control over it, I'm gonna jump into my shear work. And my client wants a basic trim, so I'm gonna be removing about 1/2 of an inch. So what you see me doing now is I'm pulling up the front section of his hair, and then I made my cut. And now I'm gonna pull up a new section, and you can see that I'm keeping my sections close to each other. That way I keep everything consistent. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna include a little bit of that previous section that I just cut and that new section that I pulled up, and I'm gonna use it as a guide and a reference point. And I'm gonna use that method throughout this whole haircut on top. Alright, so now that I'm done with my shear work, I'm going to jump into my blend work. So I'm going to start off by coming in with my WAHL number 4 guard with the lever closed. And what I'm doing right here is I'm basically establishing a foundation. And so my client typically gets that kind of comb over where his previous barber would take a number 2 and run it all the way up to that hard part on this side. And I'm not really a fan of that look, and so I talked to my client during the consultation and kind of explained to him the transition into the look that I feel would complement him more, and so that's what we're gonna go with. So I'm establishing that foundation now with that number 4 closed, and I'm gonna keep it even on both sides and knock down this bulk while I do it. That way I keep everything consistent. And right where that number 4 closed, right where I'm ending it, that's where I'm gonna start that transition to give it that even look on both sides. Alright, so now that I established my foundation that I wanted to set in, I'm gonna come in with my cordless detailer, and I'm gonna begin to set my first guideline, which is gonna be my bald guide. This is going to be a low bald fade, so I'm going to want to keep everything consistent and drop it towards the back. And one thing I'm not sure if it's very noticeable here on camera, but now that I knocked my client's hair down to that number 4, I'm starting to see that his hair isn't as dense as I thought it was. It's not that really thick Hispanic hair. It's actually really light. So as I begin to blend it, that's going to start to expose. So keeping that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and stretch this blend as much as I can to make it pop. Alright, so now that my bald guideline was created, I'm gonna come in with my foil shaver and I'm gonna completely bald it out. When I get towards the top of that guideline, you will see that I use that flick out motion, and that's because I want to demonstrate a nice clean transition from completely bald to stubble, because that's going to help this blend pop. Alright, so now that my bald guideline was created, I'm going to come in with my silver FX with the lever fully open, and I'm going to begin to create my next guideline. I'm going to continue to follow that shape that I'm giving them, which is that drop towards the back. That way I keep everything consistent with the look that I'm trying to give them. And once my guide is created with the lever fully open, you'll see that I close my lever and begin to blend from the bottom of the guide right back up towards the top of that guide. And little by little, as I work my way up, I'm going to slightly open my lever. And every time that I do that, you're going to notice that that guide's moving up with me. But that's okay, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. By the time I get towards the top of this guide and my lever's fully extended, it'll be completely blended out. And as I explained to you guys, my client doesn't have very dense hair. It's very light and it's very spread out. And so I'm taking my time with this blend because I want to give them the best look that I can. So I'm going to just go ahead and walk through my steps and take my time, not rushing anything. That way I keep everything consistent. Alright, so sometimes my silver FX doesn't remove the bald guideline created. So I'm just going to come back in and I'm going to remove it with the same tool that I went ahead and set it in with. So you could see that I'm using a lot of the corner of my trimmer right now. And again, I'm just trying to knock out that bald guideline so I could give that smooth look in the transition. So now that I have that blended out, I'm going to come in with my WAHL #1 guard with the lever fully open, and I'm going to begin to set and create my next guideline. I am going to give myself the same amount of space that I gave myself with the previous guide. That way I keep everything consistent with this blend. Once my guide's created with the lever fully open, you'll see that I close the lever and I'll begin to blend from the bottom of that guide right back up towards the top of that guide. So I'm literally going to take that one closed, right up to underneath where I just left off with that one fully open. And typically that one closed tends to leave weight behind, but I'll show you how to remove that in the next step. Alright, so now I'm going to come in with my half guard with the lever open, and right where I just showed you is the weight that's left behind by that one close. So I'm going to come in with the lever fully open, and I'm going to begin to attack right above the weight that I see. Again, that's right above the weight that I see. And I'm going to use that fade down process to knock it out, meaning I'm going to close my lever as needed, working my way down until that guide's completely blended out. So now I'm going to continue with the same steps on the back. That way I keep everything consistent with this blend. And I notice that a lot of people tend to struggle back here in this area. And I'll be the first to admit that it does take a little bit more work because the hair tends to grow a little differently back here. But my step work is all the same. I'm not switching anything up, and I'm keeping everything consistent with this blend.
Another Tito Beats production.
Alright, so I'm looking to stretch my blend. So instead of coming in with the number 2 with the lever open, I'm going to come in with the WAHL 1.5 premium guard with the lever fully open. And that's going to allow me to stretch my blend while keeping everything consistent. And I am going to use that flick out motion as I get towards the top, because I'm not trying to set in any guide right now. I'm looking to just stretch my blend. So I'm going to clean up right to where I left off with that 4 closed. And once I clean up with the lever fully open, you'll see that I close my lever, and I'll begin to blend from the bottom of that guide right back up towards the top of that guide, stopping right underneath where I just left off with that lever fully open. Alright, so that 1.5 close left a little bit of weight behind, and that's okay. I'm gonna remove it by dropping down to the guard right beneath that. So I'm gonna come in with my WAHL #1 guard with the lever fully open, and I'm gonna begin to attack right above that weight that I see. And again, I'm gonna use that fade down process to eliminate it. So I'm gonna close my lever as needed, working my way down until that guide's completely blended out. So right here, I'm just demonstrating that what I did to one side, I'm doing to the other, because again, I'm trying to transition my client into an even look on both sides. However, for some reason, I didn't film myself using the half guard in the back, and I also went in with the clipper with no guard, with the lever open, and using that fade down process, closing my lever as needed, knocking out dark spots that are clearly there. We could all see it now. The area that I'm working in, right below, there were dense and dark spots left, and again, I assure you that I did remove them. I just didn't film them, and for that I apologize. Alright, so typically now is when I would do clipper over comb to bring that blend into that length on top. But I'm choosing to come in with my WAHL #2 guard with that lever fully open, and I'm not looking to set any guideline in right now. I'm trying to connect that blend into that length on top the best that I can, but I'm choosing to do it with the guard because again, I want to stretch the blend for my client. The lightness and density of his hair, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's visible on the camera, but it's definitely a struggle to really give him a blend that pops. So I'm taking every step that I have to go ahead and really try to bring this blend out for him. So I'm gonna clean everything up with that lever fully open, and then just like the previous guide, you'll see that I close that lever and I'll begin to blend from the bottom of that guide right back up towards the top of it where I just left off with the lever fully open. Alright, so right here I'm coming in with my trimmer and I'm going to define his C-cup. He doesn't get any straight razor work, but by me defining this C-cup, what it's going to do is it's going to make things in his blend pop out to me that need attention. And that's exactly why I'm following up right now with some detail work, and I'm knocking out some dark spots that by defining that C-cup, it brought it out to me. Next time you're lining somebody up, whether it be on the neck or the side, really stand back and pay attention to the blend, and I promise you, things that need attention will stand out to you. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of clipper over comb to really bring this blend into that length on top. That #2 open, it almost did the job, but there still is a little bit more that needs to be connected. So I'm going to go ahead and come in with my comb and my clipper with the lever fully open, and I'm going to knock down that little bit of weight that we see. When I do clipper over comb, I do prefer to use a fade blade, and I typically prefer to use the blade open. I never really use the blade closed, and sometimes I will use guards. However, this time I just chose to use the blade fully open, and you can see that I'm keeping everything consistent with that shape that I'm looking to keep, and I'm really just trying to knock down any weight that we see little by little, not all of it at once, just little by little. That way I keep everything consistent. Alright, so now that everything's really coming together, I'm going to go ahead and apply some product and begin to style out my client. Alright, so here's a look at the final cut. If you got anything useful out this, I ask that you smash that like button. If you're new to my channel, I suggest you stick around. It's only gonna get doper from here. I appreciate y'all. Be blessed and be a blessing. I'm out.